Well, as you can see, another fine day for flying, but then again, a little bit of rain, a little bit of fog, a little bit of icing. Never really ever bothered the mighty Dash, especially on its way home. We are almost there, having lit out from San Francisco, headed up the Pacific Northwest, cut across the Canadian Rockies, across the plains, across the Great Lakes. We are here at Parry Sound Airport on the lovely Georgian Bay, and we're going to head out of here for a short hop down to Billy Bishop, Toronto City Airport. And the weather there is scarcely any better than here. It could be fun. Now, Air Canada Express, Air Canada Jazz, and Porter Airlines both fly into Billy Bishop, and it's a fairly short strip, and it's often subject to some mighty crosswinds because there's generally only one instrument runway, or at least one with a full ILS into it, which is runway 8, which is what we're flying into. And not only that, if you look at the approach plate right here, by the way, this is the route we're going to fly. We're going to just skirt along the edge of Georgian Bay, head down to Waterloo, loop back around here, and then we are going to go to Ling, which is our transition into an approach that will take us right around here and over the city to our left, and then onto runway 8. Pop inside here and check, make sure our altimeter is set correctly. It is. Heading bug is squared up. V-speeds are already set. I'm in heading select mode, but in a minute I will turn it on to LNAV mode, and then we will turn to intercept this. Spoilers are in flight. Our autopilot panel is set right. Our pumps and standbys are on. Make sure my auto feather is on. It is. Trim is set and flaps are set. And transponder is set. So let us get going. We're going to cruise at 190. It's not that long a flight, so we really don't have that long to climb before we start to descend again. And we've got about a 4,000 foot strip here. It's a little bit narrow, but otherwise it shouldn't give us any difficulties. I'm set in go-around mode, which is why the horizontal flight director needle is here, which is what we'll pitch up to. And it is centered vertically because it's set to heading select, and it is selected. Just watch, just for yucks. If I turn the heading bug this way, you'll see that deviates that way. So that is another way to check to see whether everything is set right. If you're in heading select mode and this is deviated, it means that you haven't set your heading correctly, and we know how painful that can be. Okay, just to go through it again, this is V1, V2, and this is our flaps retraction speed, V fry, and this is our V climb. And we're going to actually climb well above that because we're very light and we're highly powered and itching to go. So off will come the brakes, up will come the power. See that it stabilizes, it does. Move that up to end top. See that power gets set at 90% torque, and it does. And that auto feather arms, and it has, and so we're looking for 80 knots now. Just holding center line with my feet. It's kind of fat center line, isn't it? Okay, 80 knots is come and gone, and V1, and rotate, and up we go. Up can come the gear. We're looking for 1,840 feet, which is going to be our acceleration altitude. Again, we're just flying runway heading right now. And we'll bring our flaps up, which will bring our nose down automatically, and bring our props back to 900. Nose down slightly. And now we'll accelerate to about 180, which is what we'll climb at. Again, I'm just trimming myself so I can be hands off here, so I'm moving the stick back as I move the trim forward. It's a little bit more difficult than on a real plane because you feel the force in your hands in a real plane, and on this you sort of have to do it by eye. I'm going to switch over into nav mode, and it is going to direct a turn to the right to get us onto course. And establish a standard rate turn like so. Just a little bit less than standard rate, but we're getting blown about a bit. There we go. Feel the wind blowing us to the left. Little gust takes our nose. Boom. I'm not correcting for every little bit. I'm just trying to maintain, as they say, an even strain. And get a little convection going here. Just going to let us come up in speed just a little bit more. There we go. As we come through some more cloud. And as soon as we hit 180, I'll pop us into IAS mode and throw in the autopilot. There we go. And we will climb at that rate. As we get bounced around the sky a little bit. Alright. As we do that, we'll quickly turn off our auto feather and our pumps and turn our bleeds to normal, which is basically the after takeoff checklist in a nutshell. We can monitor our climb. When we get above 10,000, I'll flip off the lights, make sure that I've got alt cell enunciating, and I do, which means we will stop here. Alright. Boom, boom. Out go the lights. I'm also checking for icing, but I think we've climbed above any icing, and yeah, we have. Seems like. All our T's and P's are fine. Next stop we're looking for is 180, at which point we'll switch over to standard altimeter. And you can see we are 99 from the waypoint Waterloo, and the VOR, which I've tuned in to Waterloo, is not receiving yet. Don't know whether it's a long distance VOR, and I don't know whether it's just because we're too low. Let me double check the frequency, make sure we have tuned it in right. Alright, Waterloo is 115.0. Go to our ArcDo, 115.0, so it is set. It's just not showing up. You know what? The other thing is, it also might not have a DME. I don't think it has a DME. Alright. Well, in any case, what will happen is we will, when we get within range, we will see a green needle that will be pointing to it. And I've got all my ADFs on my white needle, which will look like this little white lollipop here. While I'm at it and looking at the gauge, I will set our decision height, which is 300 something. Let me double check. It is 311. That'll work. and I'll tweak the rudder trim a little bit. Now I'm essentially, with the rudder trim, I'm stepping on the ball, only in this case it's not a ball, it's a little trapezoid. So I'm trampling on the trapezoid, I guess you'd say. And I'm just lining it up with the index point right there. Like so. Checking our fuel flow, we've got 3,000 pounds per hour in the climb. That's going to come down to about 1,100 in cruise. And let me just double check. I've got 3,510 pounds. This is normally something you do on the ground, but be a little bit lazy and put it into the air. So that's 3,510. And we will put that in right here. 3,510. And we're going to cut our alternate down to 1,000. And cut our holding down to about 800. And our little hidden extras. And let's just see what it shows us now. Okay, now that means even with our reserves we will have an extra 28 minutes above Billy Bishop. So we are fat and happy on fuel, and we're above 180, so we'll set it to standard altimeter. And we will see that it captures altitude. We'll overshoot it a little bit because the altimeter came way up. I should have done it a little bit sooner. And now that we're at it, we'll pull our props back to 850. And we'll make sure that we don't have a runaway prop controller the way we seem to be having lately with these props on this version of the beta release of 1.017. Let's check my annunciator panel. I'm fully willing to admit that the reason why I'm having that problem isn't because of a bug in the release candidate, but because I'm using some crappy SciTech levers and they have noise in them, so when you go and slide them from here to here to here, they can sometimes give a jump and they'll go all the way down to there, and if they go all the way down to there, you can break your prop controller and it goes into a default mode, and the only way to reset it is to do a restart. So this is the NDB for the airport. So the airport is that way. And as you can see, just pop up the flight plan a little bit. The airport is indeed that way. That way there, and that way there, and you can see the line from that needle goes right from us through the airport and on out. So that's a good way to get situational awareness, especially if you can't subtract angles the way I certainly can't. Alright, we're letting our speed come up. It'll get pretty close to barber pole because we're down fairly low. Square up our heading bug. And we can plan our descent now. So let me go into our flight plan, see where our constraints are, where we have to be. Alright, our first real constraint is Musée, which is our initial approach fix. Or Musset, I don't know. But I think we probably, since Ling is our transition, and we're pretending we're vectoring ourselves around and all the rest of that, let's get us down to a sane altitude at Ling. So after Ling, we go 8 miles, so that could be 2,400 feet to get to 2,000. So let's make it 4,000 feet at Ling. Put it in there just so we can make a note of it. And then we'll go into VNav and we will tell it we want to go to Ling, number 4. Bada bing, there's Ling, and you see our 4,000 we put in there is in there. And we'll look at the descent angle that gives us. 2.87, that's reasonable. We can descend a little bit quicker if we needed to. So watch what happens to the descent angle when we change this to 1900. There, that's about a 3-degree glide path, and that's kind of nice. If I'm also not mistaken, I think we have a non-standard glide slope on this. I am not sure. I'm not good at reading Canadian charts. Yes, our glide path is 3.5 degrees. So actually, let me set myself up so that I'm configured to descend at about that same angle. That way there'll be fewer configuration and power changes when I go from stable to descent and stable to descent. So let's make this 2,000 and see where that gets us. Just trying to get us into a flight regime where I don't have to make a lot of mental or machine transitions between different phases of flight. So if I can set up a descent and I can know where my power settings are and my trim is and flaps are and speed is for a 3.5 degree descent in the initial descent, and then I transition into that for the instrument approach, there won't be as much mental and machine adjustment. It'll just look like, there we go, just like a different version of the same thing, as it were. So just narrow our scale down a little bit. One mental note I do want to make is that when we do get on final approach, what I want to do is I want to flip this NDB over from the NDB for the airport to the NDB for the missed approach point. The FMS will fly us there, but in case we don't want to rely on it and we want to fly the missed approach manually, why then we will have this all set up and ready to go. So let's also take a look at our missed approach altitude. Climbing right turn to 2,000 and then track inbound 184 to the NDB. So we'll just make a mental note of that as well. And if we look right here, we'll see we're getting close to our top of descent. There we are. Matter of fact, you know what let's do? Let's save ourselves a little bit of grief and let's go direct to Olamo. Let's just pretend that we requested it and they said okay. So the way you do it direct to is the essence of simplicity in this FMC. All you do, I'm just trying to fiddle with this thing to scale it down a little bit, and the border that you can grab it with the mouse is maddeningly small. One of the joys of Windows. There we go. Give ourselves a little bit more room there. Okay. So the way you do that is you go to the flight plan. This is where you want to go direct to. So you hit DTO 3, Olamo, and you can tell it to go left or right, but in this case if you do it automatically it is not going to go to the right because it is obviously to the left. If there's any ambiguity you can manually override it and tell it to do what you want, but here we go. Watch what happens. This is going to disappear. This magenta line is going to end up going there, and we will turn to our left. So watch this. Hit enter, and as if by magic, we head over that way. And this is our approach, as you can see. There's our transition, and there's our IAF. And again, you see our NDB is still pointing at the airport. Watch what happens when I flip over the tuning to St. Catharines, and you will see, let me just arm the approach here and tune it in, and then I'll double check it on the ArcDo. When I flip over the NDB, this little lollipop is going to stop pointing there. Well, St. Catharines is about here, so it'll just move over a little bit, as you'll see, I hope. Yep, okay, so St. Catharines is right about there. So let's just flip it back to the airport, NDB, and there we go. It's going through the airport again. So if I were to turn, so this were right in the middle of right where the index is, that would basically take us straight to the airport, but we don't really want to do that. The other thing let's do is let's get our altimeter for the field. So, CYTZ. The other thing we can do is we can use ATIS, but this is quicker, 2939. And the way we do it in Z- is we use this as our scratch pad, so when the time comes, we'll simply refer to that and transpose it to here. While we're at it, let's also check our fuel burn. As you can see, well, we're still burning 1,400 pounds per hour per side, so I guess it's thirstier than I thought at this altitude. The other thing I'm going to do is, since we use the FMS to tune our approach, and you see how this is in FMS tuning mode, and that's enunciating therefore, just going to cross-check and make sure that this is indeed the ILS. So that's 110.5. Go to our approach plate. 110.15. Let me make sure I didn't read that wrong. I'm sorry, yes, 110.15, that is correct. And the course is 085. But the localizer is offset slightly, 3 degrees. I don't know what direction it is. It's probably plus 3 degrees because it doesn't say minus 3 degrees right here. So 085 is the course. So what we'll do is we'll do our neat little dash trick is we'll hold down the format key. And we'll see the ILS is alive. And we will put in our course of 085, because when we get onto this approach, we are going to go over from pink needles, which is FMS, into blue needles, which is our ILS. And what I'll do is, once again, I will hold down format. That's a way of basically previewing your blue needle without having to switch over. We'll again square up our heading bug. And what I'm going to do right now is pause for 1 second, and I'm going to save this scenario right now in case we really screw this up. So CYTZ approach, that way through the magic of video editing, I will merely, when I botch the first time around and the second and the third, I'll just pick it up again and magically edit it in. And it will seem as though we were perfect the very first time around. In fact, I won't do that. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'll tell you if I screwed it up, because I think it's important that if you want to learn how to do this, you at least get a chance to learn from my mistakes, as I do. I happen to love watching flying videos where something goes wrong and then the pilot ends up getting out of it. Well, we're back. Remember a second ago when I saved the approach and said that we would have it available to reload so that when and If I screwed up the approach, we could do it again. You know, we are doing it again, but oddly enough, not because I screwed it up. I didn't even get a chance to screw it up. We got down to right about Ling, and we were turning final. We were configured, fat, and happy. Really just in great shape. It turns out that the ceiling down there is not going to be an issue. Maybe the wind will, and we were bracing for that, getting ready. We're getting ready to intercept a localizer, and then an out-of-memory error struck, which isn't supposed to happen anymore in prepared version 3, but it still can happen. What prepared does now in this version is basically it, and I'm just climbing us back up to speed here because I restarted us at altitude. What it's supposed to do is be a lot more clever about loading and unloading scenery objects so that you never exceed the 4 gigabytes of memory space that each process has in 32-bit. And sorry, the annoying gentleman is making his cabin announcement. I don't know why. Probably because we just restarted the airplane. But in any case, P3D is supposed to be a lot smarter about dealing with things like that, and generally it is. It loads and unloads stuff usually before things blow up. But there is something about the Toronto area that just drives P3D batshit. There must be some overabundance of objects and things, of rivers and roads and something, all clustered together in one place that just eats the crap out of your virtual memory. Not your virtual memory, your address space, vast virtual address space. I don't know what it is, but anyway, here we go again. It's kind of a bummer because I wanted to have a nice little first run at it. So we're in VNAV descent mode. We're coming up on top of descent. We are going to descend down to, I don't know if I said this already before, down to 4,000. And then from there we'll go down to our approach altitude of 2,000. I'll show you all the tricks you play with blue needles and pink needles. In other words, radio navigation versus FMS GPS navigation in doing approaches. Some of the newer dashes with very, very new versions of this universal brand FMS allow you to set up an LNAV, VNAV blended in with an ILS approach, and you never switch over in your nav source from pink needles to blue, and it just automatically blends it. The reason why it matters is because most GPS approaches, although not all of them, many GPS approaches have a constant width deviation indication on either side of the approach path. And what it really means in practice as we go down, so we don't go down because we're not in VNAV mode. There we go. Really getting off my game here. Alright, here we go. Let's recapture the path. Into vertical speed mode, down to 2,100 feet per minute. Down we go. Let's catch up to it, and as soon as we catch up to it, we'll... Matter of fact, let's get out of VNAV mode for the moment. When we see this start to come in, we will click VNAV again, and it will recapture our path. And we'll set our altimeter, which is 2939, because we're below 18. There we go. Monitoring my speed, rolling back our power levers. Picking up a little bit of icing. I will deal with that in 1 second. Flying the plane first. Okay. Come up here, turn on our prop heats, open our engine intake doors, And there we go. Go back into VNAV mode, and we have recaptured it. Sometimes when it creeps too far below, it just simply gives up the ghost. Anyway, getting back to the difference between a GPS approach and an ILS approach, as you get closer to the runway on an ILS approach, each dot of deviation becomes more sensitive. Whereas on many but not all GPS approaches, non-LPV approaches, non-augmented approaches, WAS approaches, and things like that, this CDI sensitivity stays exactly the same no matter how close you are to the station, which means that you essentially lose precision as you get closer, which is right when you need to be gaining precision. So the solution in the dash is, on most planes with most FMSs, to switch over on an ILS approach once you get established, and then everything becomes hunky-dory. On the newer ones, you can stay in this pink needle mode, and it will automatically take care of those changing sensitivities for you. And if it's an ILS approach, it will simply blend the ILS approach in seamlessly, and it will continue to display pink needles, and I think it puts up a localizer deviation right here, and everything sort of works as normal. The other thing it will do is for an LPV approach, and I think this will do the same for an LPV approach, it will increase the sensitivity the closer you get to the runway. So that part is taken care of. So on designated RNP LPV approaches, I believe Majestic's version of the dash is still equipped to fly them. It's the ILS approaches that you cannot do on pink needles alone. It'll give you a pseudo path. Essentially what it'll do is it will give you an overlay. So if you set your FMS descent and you've plugged in your waypoints and programmed an approach, it will do an overlay. It will do basically a fake ILS approach, but the closer you get, the less accurate it'll become, and then you could unknowingly get in a world of hurt. Okay, so we're getting below 10,000. Just get ourselves configured here with lights. Our seatbelt sign's been on the whole time because it has been so thoroughly crappy to fly in. Turn our bleeds to min, and turn on our pumps and our auxes. Aux pumps, standby hydraulic, power transfer unit, all on. That's basically our descent checklist. And take a wide loping turnaround here. I'm going to feed in a little bit of power because I don't really want to get too slow yet, because we're basically going all the way out across Lake Ontario and back. So now that we're on the southern end of the lake here, we're over the Niagara Falls area more or less.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just started our approach. We would kindly ask you to fasten your seatbelts again and turn off all your electronic equipment.
And that is our approach right there. Not sure whether I mentioned it, but we've got an NDB that is pointing right at the airport, because that's where the beacon is. We've also got one in standby for St. Catharines, which is right out about here, which is our missed approach point. And that's what we will fly to at 2,000 feet on the 184 track if we need to do a mist. Our challenge is going to be a 30-some-odd knot crosswind coming at us from the left rear. And we know how painful that can be. just keeping us trying to keep us below barber pole here. It's complaining a little bit. Just trying to be as expeditious as possible on the approach. There we go. Got 11 to Ling, and I believe at Ling we're going to be at 4. Double check. Yes, Ling at 4. Our approach is armed. I think I showed you before he cut the video our little dash trick, which is to hold down the format button. It will display the ILS. Make sure we have the right course plugged in. We do. And hold that down again, and we go back to our map mode. Alright, 8 to Ling, and we're 26 above, so we'll get there. Picking up some ice, but we've got our ice protection on, so that should be cool. We're also flying into a mighty crosswind here, which is why we're cocked off to one side like that. Turn our scale down a little bit. Now, when we turn final, or when we turn past Seacux here, I will switch us into heading select mode and flip us over into radio navigation, and we will then proceed to intercept the localizer and fly the approach. Just retrim us a little bit. It's kind of iffy to do because we're getting hammered one way or the other from the winds, so okay, we're going to be ever so slightly above Ling when we get there, and I'm going to spin our altitude bug down to 2,000, which is our approach altitude. I'm also going to put outcell in, and then what I will do is at some point, I think soon, cancel our VNAV and simply start bringing us down. We've got 8 miles to go, so I'll start bringing us down at about 1,800 feet per minute. So we're going to go into vertical speed mode, push that down to 1,800, roll off the power a little bit more, give us a little fighting chance of getting there. We've got a ways to go, so our restriction is only 2,000 or above, but no sense in not being configured and right and honorable along the way. So I'm going to actually descend us just a little bit more than probably we need to. Let me just shallow ourselves out a little bit to slow down. We've got 5,000 to Musset, and we've got 1,300 feet to go. So yes, I can bring us down to about 1,300 feet per minute, 1,200 feet per minute, and that should get us there. Okay, 1,000 to go. And I'm just going to let us slow down to about 200 knots. Now, reminder, I'm going to flip shortly our NDB over to our missed approach NDB, which is St. Catherine's. I'm also going to show you the little format trick here, and you'll see, no, we're still deviated far enough off the localizer that it's not showing up yet. That is okay. You can see that we are actually on our VNAV path, so we've actually manually done it just about the way the computer would have done it for us, but the way I figure it, why the hell not do it right ourselves, just to see if we can. feed in a little power as it pitches us up. Retrim a little bit. Do a quick sanity check, make sure that's the right localizer frequency. It is. A little more power so we don't get too far below 200 knots, because we want to get there in some reasonable amount of time. Retrim because we changed the power. Cancel our VNAV because we don't need it anymore. Cancel. Acknowledge the message. There we go. All right. And we're coming up on our IAF momentarily. We are at 2,000 feet. I'm going to get us fully configured for the landing, so request reduced noise profile landing. I'm going to get our V-speeds. And our V-speed is 122 VREF, and I'm going to add about 10 knots for wind. So it's not a very long runway, but I don't want to use flaps 35 because it makes it really floaty and nasty in winds. I'd rather come in just a little bit hot, a little bit flat, and bang us right down. It also makes it easier to control yaw. When you've got a lot of flaps hanging out, I found it you get all wishy-washy all over the sky when you work the rudder pedals, and it's a little bit crisper when you're at flaps 15. And for all I know, it may be even better when you're at flaps 10. Now, we're going to fly the rest of this approach, and we're just going to hope that it doesn't give us another one of those damn out-of-memory things. I've readjusted my settings in Orbix's vector configurator so that it doesn't show as many roads and railroads and crap like that. I hope we're not screwed again. Alright, holding down the format key again. And there's our localizer. So, we're going to make one more turn, and that's going to put us on a natural intercept, and this is where we ran out of memory the last time, so everybody cross your fingers. Also going to flip us over to St. Catherine's for the NDB, which is now pointing there. That's where we're going to fly our mist. Might not get a chance. Okay, please don't die. Put out our first notch of flaps. Pull our power back just slightly so we don't balloon. There we go. That's about right. It's going to turn us one more time, and then into heading select mode we will go. Okay, coming up on our turn for our intercept. There we go. Oh no. This is where it happened the last time. Cross your fingers. Okay, we'll turn our heading bug to intercept our ILS. Sorry, intercept our localizer. Should be a little more precise about these things. And we'll go into heading select mode. Crap, it's slowing down again just like it did. Come on, honey. I'm really going to have to stick this landing because I don't know how many more times I can watch this thing fail. Alright, we are now in heading select mode. We're going to switch our nav source over to Blue Needles, and you'll see we are on an intercept course for the localizer. Going to pop our sweet asses into nav mode and hope it finds its way home. And we are below the glide slope, which is perfect. drop my gear in a second, as soon as we turn final. Getting rid of this MDA here. I'm just going to set this for... Actually, let me set this for my... no. If I set it from my missed approach altitude, it'll be beeping at me the whole time. Get rid of it entirely. We've got our decision height set. We're at sea level, so my acceleration altitude to climb back out is going to be 1,000 feet. And here we are, turning final, and here comes the localizer. And here comes the glide slope. And here comes the gear. Now, ordinarily we'd come in at about 17% torque. We'll probably come in slightly higher than that. And there's Toronto ahead of us. And we'll pop ourselves into approach mode, and glide slope enunciates. And just wanted to get us a little bit stable. Here comes the localizer. Turn our heading bug around to runway heading. Our missed approach is climbed to 2,000 on runway heading. And then turn 184. Okay, here we go. That is the runway. Here come the rest of our flaps. We are fully gumped. Our lights are on. Our props are where they need to be. Our gear is down. And you see how we're offset? That's the 3-degree offset. And right now, inexplicably, we've got a pure 100% tailwind of 38 knots. So I'm going to do a circling approach, because there is absolutely no sense in landing an airplane like this with a 38 knot tailwind knocking you around the sky. So we'll just come around 180 degrees. Just widen ourselves out a little bit. We're going to stay at 1,000 feet. It's going to yell at us about excess localizer deviation there. That is because we are excessively deviated. Just for sanity's sake, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to detune our localizer by going into the arc do and popping something else in there just so that isn't flashing at us the whole time. It's a little anal retentive, but there you have it. Alright, in a second we will turn downwind, and it is very downwind. We'll also pretend that we have that we've called the tower and approach, and we're doing this all by the book. Alright, so we're going to be flying into an absolutely colossal headwind in a second. Okay, we'll turn base in 1 second here. We're already configured for landing, and we're already at about the right speed. Okay, to base we go. Now in a second we'll probably balloon up slightly because of that headwind that we'll be coming into. Okay, there's our runway. We're at about the right altitude. We've got a city and we've got obstacles, so let's be conscious of them. Matter of fact, that radio tower is going to be a problem, and we will deal with it by deviating around it to the right and kinking back this way. Look at that. Okay, there we go. Hey, hey, look, Ma, I'm flying. All right. Having dodged death there, we are on profile, and we're going to pull our power back quite a bit because we have got a 38 knot headwind. It's going to be like landing on an aircraft carrier. Look at that airspeed shoot up. Look at that. I'm down to idle. There we go.
500.
All right, a little bit
+100.
low. Bring a little power back in. Just trying to flatten out our descent profile a little bit. There we go.
Minimums. Minimums.
Landing. See how nose down we still are? We're nose down and 148 knots. Just getting the crap knocked out of us. But we are going to be home free. Okay, got a little wind shift there.
100.
Short runway. And
50.
we're float.
30. 20.
Big gust. Whoa.
10.
Nope, going around. Gear up. One notch of flaps up. Pitch down. Props back. And around we go. Back up to pattern altitude. Bring up one more notch of flaps so it doesn't complain. And we'll turn downwind again. Alrighty. Back we go. There's that spit of land we used before as a landmark. And actually I'm going to widen it out a little bit so I don't have to deal with that radio tower again. Bring our power back. Trim up. Props back down to 850. There we go. Gear down. A little more power. There we go. As we turn to downwind. And we try again. Bring the rest of our flaps in, get fully configured. Staying at 1,500 feet. Nice long base. Alright, there's that nasty 38 knot wind again. Let's see what we can do about it this time. Look at it pushing us wide on this turn. Look at that. Look at the ground with reference to how we're banked. Alrighty. We are gluttons for punishment, I guess. Slow us down. There's the radio tower. Turn us before we get there, and we'll just do a 45-degree intercept to final.
1,000.
Bring the power down again a lot. Turn our reduced noise profile landing back on. Boom. Our bleeds are at min. That's cool. We're on profile yet again. Up comes the airspeed. We're going to float around like a box kite. This could be one of the rare instances where we are actually going to roll off power here on the Mighty Dash. There we go, on profile.
Plus 100.
Cripes. It's gusty too. Yep, 37 knots right off the nose. Trimming like crazy too. And here comes that float. Stay nose down. I'm going to flare a little bit late.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
There we go. Man. Wow. And look at how slow our ground speed was. Our ground speed was practically walking. Man. Our ground speed must have been about 9,500 knots. Man, oh man, oh man. Can you imagine landing with that as the tailwind? All right, well, this is fitting. We are appropriately pulling into gate number 2. Here at lovely Billy Bishop Airport, which was tailor-made for the Mighty Dash. And I think that is about enough for us. I don't know what else we could have done, what other cheap tricks we could have played, but with that, our next stop is going to be Montreal, home base. And let me know what you think in the comments. Like it if you like it. Don't if you don't. Subscribe if you want to see more. This was a rare pleasure. This was fun. And with my lights blazing there, even though they shouldn't be, and my engine's turning, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.